welcome to this month's Friends of Elephants event. For those who are new here, I will briefly introduce Friends of Elephants. Friends of Elephants is not an organization and is not proposing to become one. It is an informal group of people coming together with varied expertise concerned about elephants and other wildlife. The group is a forum for disseminating knowledge linked to elephants and other wildlife science, conservation and welfare through art, culture, literature, movies, talks, and panel discussions. Friends of Elephants have been conducting these events as offline events since April 2014 and as online events post COVID. The expectation is that people who have attended our events, formally or informally, participate or help in developing appropriate conservation and welfare measures for wildlife, including elephants. The theme for today is Bachelor Elephants, and the schedule is as follows. We have an interesting talk on Bachelor Bulls by Aneesh Sankarankutty. This is followed by a conversation led by Ganesh Raghunathan. As always, in the end, we have Q&A session moderated by Sanjay Ajanikar. Before we start, I will briefly introduce myself. I am Anvitha S, and I'm currently a PhD student in Professor Vidya's lab at JNCSR. I'm working on the demography of Asian elephants in Nagarhole and Bandipur National Parks using the long-term data collected by the Kabni Elephant Project. I'm also interested in understanding the influence of droughts on elephant groups. Previously, I have worked on communal roosting in miners, and I have also conducted agent-based simulations on animal social organizations. I am very happy to introduce the event today. The talk for today is titled Bachelor Bulls, What I Learned from Them, and our speaker is Aneesh Sankarankutty. Aneesh considers himself as an elephant observer and photographer. Being a native of Palakkad, he has been seeing elephants since childhood, and this has persuaded his interest and curiosity about them. Anyone who has met Aneesh knows that he is extremely passionate about spending time in the field observing elephants, especially on foot, and this has helped him learn and understand their natural history. His approach has helped him perceive and capture some of the key moments in the lives of elephants. His photographs have helped identify problems and create public awareness. He has also received 10 international awards. Over to you, Aneesh. I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please post in the chat box so that we can take it up in the Q&A session. Also, in case the Zoom meeting ends suddenly, please rejoin with the same link. This might happen 2 times. Okay, over to you, Anish. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Anvitha. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Friends of Elephants team, for inviting me as a speaker for this event. So this is my second time in the Friends of Elephants event. So previously, last year in October, I was fortunate, me and Ganesh, both of us were fortunate to give a talk on the theme Photographers Elephants. So this is something different from what I have presented last. I mean, it will be a photo documentation is involved in that, but this is more towards the behavioral side of many bulls. Bulls means male elephants. So I think I'll start the presentation and tell more stories about elephants and their behavior. I hope everyone can see the slideshow.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so the talk is going to be about Bachelor Bulls and what I have learned by observing these Bachelor Bulls over a period of maybe 10 years or over a decade. Not every bull, but yeah, some of them. So I'll start with the social structure of elephants generally. So elephants, I mean, for a common man, elephants are like two types. So one is a elephant family or a elephant herd, where you can see more number of females, then calf, juveniles, subadults, even subadult tuskers, juvenile tuskers. So the numbers will be large. So that's one social structure, and the second one is a solitary male. So usually, male elephants roam alone in the forest. It is considered. I mean, most of us have been hearing this, that elephants are solitary. I mean, male elephants roam solitary in the forest. So these are the two kind of social structures that we have been hearing from the childhood. But recently, I started observing a different kind of social structure among the bulls. That's all male groups or bull groups. So I am talking in the perspective of the landscape in which I live. That is, I live in Palakkad. So it is a small place in Kerala, close to Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore. So, and the Palghat Gap actually divides the Western Ghats into two. The On either side of the Western Ghats, I mean, south of Western Ghats, I mean, south of Palghat we have Anamalais, and north of Palghat we have Nilgiris. So I was literally fortunate to be born in this place, and probably that's why I was able to observe all these elephants, because it was the geographical location which helped me to see them. So this all male groups, I started seeing them. Maybe that was there before also, but I started observing them from uh, maybe for the last 10 years. So what is the bull elephant's course of life? It's like how an elephant grows in the wild. So it's like, in the picture you can see it's a calf. The calf, the photograph that you see is of a calf which was hardly 10 to 15 days old, and the calf will always be with the mother and the herd. So, and the herd will be protecting the calf for quite a long time. And as the calf grows, I mean, if it's a male, then his tusks come out after a few years, and we name them as juvenile elephants. And that time also, those elephants will be spending time with the family. And the third image that you see here, it's it's the same herd, but the tusker is a subadult tusker. So it was part of the same group for a long time. So he was still spending time with the family, but in the next image you can see that he was interacting with another male elephant. So, but he was with his family. His family was close by, and this was a different tusker. So he was interacting with a different male. So, and recently, when I saw the same elephant, he has become a solitary male. So he was roaming alone, and his family was some 10 kilometers away from the location of this bull elephant. So this is like a social, I mean, the bull elephant's course of life, how they grow, the stages of their growth. So now, this is probably the most interesting thing that I'll do in my life, understanding the behavior or just observing the Bachelor Bulls. So this is one of such individuals which I have been seeing and observing and photographing for over a decade. So this elephant is in Nelyambati Hills. So I was able to understand a lot of things about Bachelor Bulls by observing this elephant and photographing him. So many things like their ranging behaviors. It's totally different when it comes to must and non-must season. and their behavior is also sometimes different according to the location, geographical location where he is present. So all the four images that you see in this slide is of the same elephant. So the one on the left top, the elephant walking in the greenery, is during the monsoon in Nelliyambadi Hills. And on the right side, he's walking on a road in Mast. That's in a part of Anamalai Tiger Reserve, which is quite far from where he is in the monsoon season. So, and the same elephant has different behavior and different seasons. So, one, you can see that the elephant is very tolerant to the vehicles that are standing close to him on the road, and people are photographing him. He's happily feeding on the jackfruit there. The same elephant in aggression is chasing or charging at the people and the vehicles on a different location. So, and he was in Must at that time. So all these things I was able to understand by observing the elephant for a decade, and still I have only seen only a very little part of his life, but still all these things were really interesting. So that I was fortunate to observe so many things. So I was talking about a bachelor bull. So my first exposure to a, a bull group was from Coimbatore. So these are young individuals, young male individuals. So the bigger one, which is on the left side walking, is the famous Chinnatambi. I know many of you must have heard the name. So Chinnatambi was a very famous tusker in Coimbatore. So he was a crop rider, of course, and he used to spend more time in and close to the human habitations in and around Coimbatore. And this was one of the bulls that I saw along with him for some time. So he was also present with many other bulls in that region. And he was both famous and infamous for raiding crops. And in 2019, if I'm right, the forest department was forced to capture this elephant and relocate him to the Anamalai Tiger Reserve. Actually, Coimbatore is on the northern side of the Palghat Gap, and Anamalai, I have mentioned, is on the southern side, and the Palghat Gap is some 32 kilometers. Usually, elephants don't cross this gap. So he was transported to the south of Palghat Gap, actually. But I think around seventh or eighth day, he started traveling outside the forest, and he traveled almost more than 50 kilometers and crossed Udumalpete and almost reached Palni Hills. I mean, Palni, the temple. He was close to Palni temple, and he was on the way. He was just walking, feeding on the crop, whatever he could get. So this image was taken on one of those days of his journey. So as you can see, he was coming out of a banana plantation, walking through a paddy field, going to a sugarcane field, and on the background you can see the coconut farms. So this is like almost most of the things that crop riders prefer while raiding crops. So it was actually very interesting to see him walking, and he was such a calm elephant, and he didn't want to harm anyone. And even you can see how the forest department watchers were monitoring him closely. But as he was outside the forest for many years, they didn't have any option but to capture the elephant. And he is now in the top slip camp, and he'll be there the rest of his life. The mahouts will be taking care of him. But why he traveled is still a mystery, because Anamalai is a rich, I mean, is very rich in the fodder for elephants, and you have very good population of elephants in the Anamalais. But still, he was like maybe he was searching for his home and he was returning home. Maybe he lost his way. Nobody knows what happened. So this was in 2019. So before that, so I was fortunate to see a different kind of travel in my native journey of a bachelor group. So this was journey of Chinnathambi alone. So the journey of bachelor group was something very exciting for me and the people around. So you can see uh, three elephants, three tuskers, adult bulls. They traveled. It happened in Palakkad. So they started on August 2nd or 3rd. They started their journey from the forest, and they traveled almost 40 kilometers, almost touching the next district of Thrissur, came back, and the whole journey was for about 8 to 9 days. I think the ninth day they reached back the forest. So in this journey, they have crossed 2 or 3 state highways, multiple roads, 2 rivers, 2 railway tracks, hundreds of houses. I don't know how many people encountered them on the way, but to the surprise, they didn't harm anyone and they didn't get harmed themselves. So it was it was a big question for many people. So why did they travel? So they used to travel at night, and during the daytime, they'll spend some time in some thick. I mean, it's a town. If it's a town or a village, you get some abandoned farmlands or places where you can hide. I mean, elephants can hide. So they used that place to hide during the daytime. And this particular day, they didn't get any place. So they were like, there was an island in the middle of the river. This river is Bharatapura. So they had no option but to stay there for the whole day. And it was like on 3 sides, there were people just watching the show. And they were like, they'll stand on the island for some time, feed on the grass, then they'll get into the water, have a play fight, or they'll just like what you're seeing in the picture. You can see the elephants just having a bath, and people are looking in the background. So it was, and no, I mean, nobody knows why these elephants for crop raiding. Of course not, because there are enough crops available close to the forest also. But why did they travel so far is still a mystery. So now I'm going to talk about bachelor bulls in human dominated landscapes. So as you can see in the picture, it's a bachelor bull feeding on the palm tree, and people are standing on the roof, on the terrace, and photographing the elephant. So, what do the bulls usually do when they are on a human dominated landscape? So, sometimes they roam solitary. So, they'll be alone, and they'll travel alone to the most of the places. Or sometimes they join a bachelor group with other bulls. As you can see, there are 3 bulls here. So the group number can vary. It depends on their preference. So sometimes the one elephant will be grouped with the other, and the other will be roaming solitary. So this formation might keep changing. And of course, the risk involved while living in a human-dominated area is not small. So when it comes to the Coimbatore-Palakkad landscape, the railway track is a great risk for the elephants. So, and most of the elephants have to cross the railway track to come to the human habitations or crop plants. So, every day they are taking such a risk. For what? To feed on the delicious and nutritious crops. So, that's why they are coming, probably. And they are staying in the human dominated landscape for delicious and nutritious crops. So, let's talk about the bachelor group. So this is a ideal photograph of a bachelor group just crossing the river. So you can see three bulls, three adult bulls, well built. So how is the life of a bachelor bull? How is a day of a bachelor bull? So usually they enter the forest, nearest forest, after probably raiding crops early in the morning, and they'll sleep for some time. After getting up, they'll probably feed on the available fodder inside the forest, whatever they get. And afternoons, they sometimes indulge in play fighting or some beautiful interactions among themselves. And evening is the time to drink water. They come to water sources, whichever water hole or river or reservoir, whichever is available. And when the night falls, they'll move towards the croplands, and they'll start raiding crops when they are in human dominated landscape. So I'll show you a video of how a day of a bachelor bull or a group is. I hope everyone saw the video. And the last one, the firework, usually the festivals in Kerala end in fireworks, but that was not a festival. It was actually the farmers were chasing away a lone tusker on their paddy field, and they use crackers for that. So the last firecracker was for driving a bachelor bull from the paddy field. So in this image, as you can see how crop riding is. So usually it's a term which has been used many times and many people have heard it, but very few have seen it properly. So this image was taken at night 11:30 on a full moon night, and you can see the paddy field and you can see the mountains on the background, and there is only one house to the right side of the elephant. You can see some light, so that's the house. So this is how usually the elephants, I mean, where the presence of humans are very less, and where the elephants are confident that the humans won't come and drive them away fast, so they prefer to feed on that paddy field. So this is the paddy field actually, and they usually prefer feeding on the paddy a few weeks before the ripening. So the farmers usually say that it's very tasty, and I have tasted it once, and it's actually very tasty. So that's why the elephants are probably coming every day to feed on the paddy. So apart from paddies, there are a lot of other things that elephants feed when they come to human-dominated areas, especially the bachelor bulls, because the bachelor bulls use the human-dominated areas more than the females or the herds. So here you can see 6 different images, and on the first image, which is on the left top, you can see an elephant trying to break a jackfruit. And on the second image, the elephant is feeding on a palm tree. So the Palakkad, especially Palakkad and Coimbatore landscape, is famous for the palm trees. So elephants feed well on the palm tree, and they love it. And on the third image, you can see the small seeds on the dung. So that's guava seeds. And on the fourth, you can see tamarind seeds. And fifth, you can see mango. And sixth, you can see ice apple, the palmyra fruit that people uh, mention here. So it's ice apple. Elephants feed, elephants also feed on many other variety of things, but these are some of the things that elephants regularly come for. So, and what is the advantage of spending so many time or so much amount of time in human dominated areas? So that's a big question. And I think this image can answer that. So you can see the image on the image elephant. It's the same elephant on the right side image also, and you can see the difference of the body condition. So the both the pictures were taken 6 months apart. So one was in September and another was in February. So the image on the left was right before the bull came into must, and image on the right was taken after he came back from the must, a few months after. So you can make out the difference. The image was taken from the same place and the same railway track. So probably this is a reason why they are coming out and staying in the human dominated landscape for so long. But as I mentioned, the risks involved are not small. So there are many risks that these bulls or bull groups, bachelor bulls, have to go through while spending their time in the human dominated areas. So first is, of course, people. So rather than elephants, people are more prone to elephant attacks in many of the human dominated landscapes. So the surprise encounters have caused many deaths in most of the places, especially in Palakkad and Coimbatore areas also. Many human elephant encounters end up in not in a good way most of the time, and in many places a retaliatory killing also happens. So encounter with people is the first risk for both the people and the elephants, of course. So the second risk probably is getting injured. So this in the image, as you can see, the water is coming out of two separate places on the elephant from the elephant's trunk. One is through the proper trunk, and there is a small wound which was healed long back. So there's a small puncture on the trunk. So elephant, the water is just oozing out of the pump. Trunk. And the third image you can see, it's still people are least bothered about this thing. Uh, Even in many places, especially in tourist areas, we can see plastic getting accumulated. So that can also pose a risk for both the Bachelor Bulls and the other elephant families. Or this one was like, I was really shocked to see this uh, long stretch of the forest goes. So the long stretch of forest goes through the, sorry, long stretch of railway track goes close to the forest in Palakkad and Coimbatore. So many elephants get killed while trying to cross the railway tracks for raiding crops and also to the nearest forest areas. So while we were talking about the Bachelor Bulls and bull groups, so here I'm introducing you a duo of, I mean, two adult bulls, which I was fortunate to observe them for 4 years. So they were like always together. So here on the 4 images, you can see on the first image, they are spending time in a stream on a fine evening, playing and having play fight and all. And on the second image, you can see them walking along a forest boundary. On the third image, you can see them waiting for it to get dark so that they can enter the paddy field. And you can see the paddy's color is a little bit green. So that's when the ripening happens. So that's the time which these elephants prefer to feed on the paddy. So they are, both of them are waiting there. And it happened in 2019. So in 2019, during the last phase, I mean, during the month of November and December, these elephants were missing from the human habitations for some time. And during 19th November, December, if I'm right, I saw one of the bulls along with the elephant family. And you can see that bull's body condition, he was like almost getting into must. And for 2 days he was spending time with the family, but still I was surprised that the other bull, his companion, was not there. And on 24th December, that's a Christmas Eve night, he met with a tragic train accident in the same place where I have shown a picture of elephant crossing the railway track in front of a train. This was the same individual. So he met with a train accident and died immediately on Christmas Eve. So this place was actually 3 to 4 kilometers away from the forest. And after the postmortem, the burial happened, and on it happened at 25th night it happened. And when 27th early morning, I just wanted to check the burial site. Randomly, it was close to a human habitation. So I just randomly went, and this was what I saw. So the previous night, one elephant, I don't know which elephant, I could make out that he was a big elephant because the footprints or the elephant tracks were really big. And it was only one elephant. I could see only one track. It came all the way from the forest because I followed the tracks, and it went back to the forest. So he just came, he or she, I don't know. That elephant just came to this site. He just spent some time, the elephant just spent some time there. He didn't feed anything on much. So, and returned back the same way. So, just, I'm not sure which elephant came. It could be his companion or any other elephant from the herd, but it was a huge elephant. It was not a small elephant. So, and after his death, for almost 6 months, I was not able to see his companion. So then later, during the monsoon, in May or June, during the beginning of the monsoon, I was able to see the elephant. and he was not much active in crop raiding. He was with other Bachelor Bulls, of course, but he was restricted to a couple of places. Rather, when the other bulls traveled to many places for food and crop raiding, but this individual was like standing in one or two areas for a long time. And one day he got an accidental electrocution. So it was totally accident because he just uprooted a tree which was close to a forest, and that tree fell on a electric pole and the electric line, and it broke, and he was on the paddy field, and there was water in it, and he got electrocuted. It was a unfortunate accident. So both of these elephants just passed away in a span of less than a year. I mean, one happened in December, and the following September, this individual also passed away. So after that, so I must introduce the explorer. So he was a perfect example of a bachelor bull, both operating as a solitary male and in a bull group. So that's why I used to call him the explorer, because he is probably the only elephant which has traveled uh, almost to all places in the Palakkad Coimbatore landscape. Because as I mentioned earlier, the journey of those three elephants, uh, some 30 kilometers away from the forest, happened first time in 2017 August, and it repeated for almost 5 times in the next 3 years. And the only common elephant in all this journey was him. And couple of the journeys he just traveled of his own. He didn't have any companion, so he was like alone. So he almost crossed half of the Palghat gap, or maybe you can say 60% of the Palghat gap. So if he traveled further, he was traveling south. So if he traveled further, he would have reached probably the Niliyambadi hills in a day or two. So that much travel he did, but he came back all the way every time. So it was very interesting to observe this guy. I mean, he was never stationary in one place. Even while interacting with other bachelor bulls, also he used to change the groups in weeks or months, but he was seen everywhere. And you can see the first image is a YouTube video from a news channel in Tamil Nadu, from Coimbatore. That's the Coimbatore Palakkad highway, and he is crossing the road. The elephant which is coming on the front is the explorer, and behind, I think it's the Madhukare Maharaj, who was captured in 2017 or 18 from Coimbatore and released or captured by the forest department, because some of those elephants were creating too many problems to people, and they were spending more time in human habitations. So the same individual you can see on the image on the right side, who is uh, moving in front, is the same elephant, and the duo is following him here. This is in Palakkad. So the first image was of 2016, and the second image that you see is of 2019. So he was like using the whole landscape, forest or village or whatever. He was literally an explorer. So this was him roaming alone one day, and this is him with a very large adult bull in Palakkad. And that's again him with a juvenile male, and this was one of the long journeys. I think the third or fourth journey was with this juvenile bull. And but unfortunately in 2021 March, on the Kerala Tamil Nadu border, he met with a train accident. And the most unfortunate thing was he didn't die on the spot, and he was not able to get up. He was alive, but he couldn't move his legs or hind legs. Only his trunk and ears were moving, and he was taken to a rehab by the forest department. But he passed away. I mean, of course, I mean, such a elephant who traveled or explored the whole area, it was not a deserving death for him. So this elephant also was very interesting to observe him actually. So this kind of behavior from traveling to one place to another, interacting with many bull groups, not many elephants I have seen here in Palakkad. So in other places there might be, but here when it comes to the Coimbatore Palakkad landscape, he was, his thoughts or his what was running in his mind was a total mystery. So elephants are always, their mind is always a mystery. So this was something special. And here you can see 4 different bulls. So I included this image because these 2 associations of the duos are very, so the large tusker with the explorer was a combo. I mean, they usually, whenever they were together, they used to travel together. And on the bottom of the screen, you can see 2 different elephants. So these 2 also used to travel together. So they might have preferences of where to go, whom to meet, that kind of preferences all these bachelors have. And also these 4 elephants, I have not seen the 4 elephants together. I have not the large tusker. The other 3 I have seen together, but one of them just comes occasionally and goes to somewhere deep inside the forest. And this image, the 3 of them are no more. So the one standing right in the middle of the railway track is the explorer, and the other 2 are part of the duo that I mentioned earlier. So 3 of them, 2 of them got hit by a train, and one got accidental electrocution. So this actually a loss. I mean, when it comes to the conflict part, it's actually, I mean, people are really happy that so many crop riding elephants are not there. But when it comes to the uh, forest part, I mean, such large breeding bulls are not so common that you see now. And this particular elephant named PT7 is actually, you must have heard the name of the elephant in the newspapers from the December 2022 and January 2023. So he was also using the Palakkad landscape for a long time. He, he's a not a big adult bull, but a young adult, of course. And he also was a part of a bachelor group. And this was him along with the adult male. So the elephant running in front of him, I mean, sorry, elephant running in front is PT7, and following is a other big bull. And this was like one day they were hiding in a small farm close to the highway, and people in the forest department had to drive them back to the forest during the daytime. So, and he was a frequent crop rider, and eventually so many problems happened that in January 26th, I think, 2023 January, he was captured. And now he finished his training and he is out of the kraal, and he'll be spending rest of his life in the camp as a captive elephant or a kunki. So when it comes to PT7, I was really surprised by how the media coverage was. So after that, the Arikomban issue and everything, you must have seen in the media how the hype happened. And literally a person who doesn't know anything about elephants started talking about the elephants or tuskers and started naming them. So this is one of the incidents that I recently encountered. So this happened at around 3 o'clock, and the elephant was on a forest, and you can see it's a paddy field close to the forest, and there are solar fences on the side. So the elephant came out to the boundary, and he started feeding on some bamboo there. and there were people working on the paddy field, and they got actually the distance was almost 100 meters, more than 100 meters. So they just got surprised after seeing the elephant, and they started running. So after that, this person was like, instead of the elephant was very peaceful actually. He was just feeding, and he was least bothered about the sound or watching the people running and shouting and nothing. So after that, when everyone settled, this person started. He just took his phone, and the first call he did was not to the forest department or any concerned authority. He just called a newspaper person or a media person, and asking him to come and cover the issue. So things have gone like that. I mean, media has a very crucial role in protecting or whatever, I don't know, but in the life of many bachelor bulls that are using the human dominated landscape, I always feel that media nowadays especially plays a great role. So as you can see, the paper report that comes, Kabali is the name of a elephant which is a frequent elephant in the Varachal Valpare road. So that road goes through the forest. The entire road of some 50-60 kilometers go through a forest, and media is complaining about the elephant blocking the road, the forest road. So that kind of news is coming. I mean, today also I happened to see many such reports. I mean, whenever an elephant is seen in the forest or in the fringe areas, which is very common in many places, everything has become a news. And as you can see, most of the bulls, it's the in the media, it's mostly bulls. So that's a really big concern for the bulls which are roaming outside. So they can be portrayed either good or bad by the media, and people, most of them, unfortunately, believe what the media tells. So it's a matter of concern, of course. And when it comes to the bachelor bulls, are they really bachelors? So they only have a solitary life? I'll say definitely not. So this is one of the individuals that I introduced to you few minutes before. And here you can see him following a herd, and he's in Mast, and he's following a herd, and he was with the herd for many days or many weeks, or maybe I think more than a month he was there. The whole most of his Mast period he spent with the same herd. And in this image you can see that there are two different tuskers with two different females. So it's actually not a different place where they used to roam during the must season. It's the same place uh, which they used to raid crops, but this was a little bit far away, but it's the same landscape and the same areas they used to walk. And they are seen interacting and courting females of different herds at the same place during the must season. And sometimes they'll disappear for months. And it's very hard to follow these elephants inside the forest because the terrain is very undulating, and it's very difficult to follow them during the monsoon. So it's very difficult. And not only these kind of interactions happens inside the forest, some of those interactions with a bachelor bull and a herd also happens close to the human habitation, and sometimes in the human habitations, just like the next video you can see. It was one of such incidents which happened in Palakkad a couple of years back. So this herd along with the bull was, they just came feeding on the grass, as you can see on the foreground. So, and this is the Palakkad IIT actually. So it was at the construction stage, and they were not able to go back during the early morning because the workers gathered at the before dawn for the shift of work or something, and they were just like so traumatized, and they were like sticking together. And it was morning around 9 o'clock, and the whole work was stopped, and there were roads, and children had to go to school, people had to go to work. So I mean, the people and the watchers were trying to drive them away, and they were like literally cornered, because you can see on either side there are buildings, there are a lot of workers, mostly migrant workers, have gathered, and everyone with a mobile phone just shooting this, they call a beautiful scene. So, but the elephants had no way to go. So after this, somehow they managed to go through the side of the building which was under construction, and they reached the forest around 10 o'clock. And luckily, no one got injured or anything, not even an elephant. So, and this was a couple of years ago when I first saw a large bachelor group. This place is close to the Adrapalli Falls in Thrissur district. And here, as you can see, it's an oil palm plantation, and many bulls gather here to feed on the oil palm. So this image, you can see there are 4 of them, but actually there were 9 of them. I couldn't fit them in a frame, so they were just like 100 meters away from these 4. So the changing in groups do happen there, and some come alone and some regroup. So all this happen. I was not able to monitor them for a long time. I was only able to see them for a couple of times. So this was one of those images which I took. So, and this image is a perfect example of knowledge transfer from bulls. Here in 2 images, the bull on the top image, you can see 2 bulls, one a small one and a big tusker, and on down again a small elephant and a big tusker. So the small tusker on the first image, on the top image, is the large tusker on the second image. So this was like he was using this landscape for almost more than 15 years. And the big bull that you see on the above image is no more. And this guy has spent considerable amount of time along with the bull, and now he is using the landscape, and some juvenile or subadult bulls have joined him. This happened a couple of years back, so it's very interesting to see their behavior and all these things. I mean, it's very difficult to understand about what an elephant thinks or what a bull group thinks. Forget the bull group. What a bull thinks itself is very hard to understand. But after a lot of observations, I mean, we can at least find out some, not find out, we can observe these kind of interesting behaviors. And thank you everyone for spending time to hear the talk. And these are the people that I should thank who really helped me to understand elephants. And of course, the elephants who spared me to tell their stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Anish, for sharing your insights. I think there are a lot of questions and we will get to them in the Q&A session. We'll move on to our next session. Just a moment. We now have a conversation titled Will Every Bull Elephant Join a Bachelor Herd? This is led by Ganesh Raghunathan. Ganesh is a photographer turned conservationist. He works with the Nature Conservation Foundation Valparai, where he has spent over a decade understanding human-elephant interactions. He has also been working on finding ways to minimize negative interactions between people and elephants. His passion for photography and filmmaking has continued while he's working with NCF, and he's inclined towards capturing the secret lives of elephants and the factors affecting them. Over to you, Ganesh.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Hi, Anish. Lovely talk.
Hi,
Really enjoyed.
Ganesh. Thank you.
Many things that you were talking about reminded me of the numerous field times that we've spent just a little disclosure to everybody. I've known Anish also like the elephants for over a decade now, I think. And
I like. Thank
interestingly,
you.
our common mutual connect was elephants in general, and of course the friends that put us in touch with it. I've had the wonderful opportunity of actually spending time with Anish on field, and the interesting interactions that we have in discussing things. We never talk on field. That is one thing. We only signal to each other. But the conversations that follow once we get back is what is the most interesting thing for me that I look forward to whenever we are out on field.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take too much of time in telling Anish and my stories. But I'd like to get a little into this topic that Anish has spoken about today. So much into focusing into the bulls and male elephants basically, and the factors that are affecting their lives. One thing with Anish, I'd like to ask you is to start off with, because I don't think you had all that much amount of time in your slides to explain certain factors or certain things that actually happen in elephant lives. So, at what age do you think the bulls actually leave the natal herds that they're born in? Is one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. And, is that a very quick
Yeah.
process? Is it like wake up one morning and just say bye to the rest of your herd and just carry on doing your things, or is it a very slow process? What have you observed?
No, from what I have observed. So the last slide, do you remember that small tusker was following a
Mm-hmm.
large bull? So that tusker was part of a herd at that time, and he was not following the tusker. I mean, the small tusker, that subadult one, was part of a herd, and he was not following the large tusker for a long period of time, and still he is with the herd. So it was like a frequent, I mean, there was a frequent interval. Maybe in 1 year, he was with the large bull for almost uh, 2 months, or the previous year for 1 month. And this time, I was able to see him for almost 3 days. That's all. So, and that Tusker will be what, around 15 years of age, around 10 to 15 years of age. That's all. And he is not spending time with the adult bull for a longer time. He's still with the herd, and I have also seen him a couple of days roaming solitary also.
Yeah. So the reason I ask this is because even in this
Yeah.
landscape that I work in Banamalize, I've had the opportunity to actually look at these young elephants, the males, when they are at a very early stage of being a juvenile, and now they've actually come to a stage where they've left the natal herd and they've moved on. But again,
Yes.
coming back to the top, I have noticed it here in such a way that it is a very gradual process. I'm sure it happens over a long period of time, the distance that grows between these individuals and, with others.
Yes.
But I have, unlike how it is in Palakkad, this is where I think is extremely important that we pay attention to this fact is that the geographical locations are very different, the habitat and the pressures and the factors that surround the people's lives, the crops that are grown, elephant lives, everything is extremely complicated and it's very different
Yes.
place
Yes.
to live, right? So here,
Yes.
I do not see elephants. I do not see mature bulls or the subadult bulls and all of them hanging together as a bachelor group for more than a week maximum. I would say. I would say
Okay.
maybe about 7 or 8 male elephants is something that I've seen together. But that also does not last very long. Maybe a week, maybe 10 days, or maybe that group itself splits and goes into threes and twos or something like that. But
Okay.
they've not last that unit has not lasted for very long periods of time, like how you explained happens in the cropland
Yeah.
areas. Because the where I live and
Yes.
work does not have crop field; it's mostly tea and coffee plantations, which elephants don't feed on the tea mostly. Thankfully, otherwise the place would have been a very much more conflict.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
So here,
Yeah.
one other thing that I wanted to bring up is there's this one other instance that we had when we were monitoring elephants in Satyamangalam region. So there were these two male elephants. One was a Makna and the other one was a Tusker. The Makna
Okay.
was much older, much larger, and had less fear of people compared to the Tusker. But these elephants were not something that they would, you would see where they would gather together and travel together, like how we saw Explorer and all the other Surly and all the other
Yeah.
elephants did. But they would have a very short temporary association in a particular season where the Tusker breaks away the solar fences and all the other equipments that is there protecting the crop field, and the Makna goes in and they feed. The moment people gather, there's vehicles mobilized. The driving aspect of things come into picture. That time the Makna stands ground and faces the people while the Tusker continues to feed. So this is something where both of them are being benefited in that short period of time. But how do they even get there? Their systems are so well synced, is it that they are able to even come there and benefit from each other's skills, if I can say that. Have you seen any
Yes.
such other actions here?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the railway track, no?
Mhm.
So most of the times these elephants have to cross the railway track to come to the human habitations. So it will be usually one tusker. For example, I have, Churli. So he will be probably the lead when it comes to the railway track. He usually comes at first, and the other two follows sometimes. So I have seen that multiple times, and I mean, some of these elephants might, uh, they'll just stand there for some time and just watch out for the trains, and they'll slowly cross.
Mhm.
And if there is grass available, they might stand there and feed. But usually it's like, just like you said, it will be like, yeah, one will be in front. But uh, I can't say that it's a leader, but yeah, I have observed something similar here.
Okay. So in that case, then can we say that elephants, all male elephants, will form a bachelor herd, or can we say they will be a part of a bachelor herd at some point in their lives? How would you even categorize this thing? Because if you
uh,
see all the three elephants that we took for that you
yeah.
showed, for example, all the three of them are no more, basically, right? They all formed a
Yes, yes,
unit together. They had a certain set of activities that you were able to break down, saying morning, afternoon, evening, night. These are the systematic functions that they were
yes,
doing every day to day. And all the three elephants have lost their lives to some or the other form of human involvement in it, be it electrocution. I mean, of course, that was not somebody who killed that elephant, I'm saying,
yeah,
be it in crop raids or train collisions and things like that. And of course, even those other slides that you showed, which showed the different threats that are there. People in the first slide,
yes,
second slide also was a snare wound or something like that on the trunk, which is again
yes, yes, yeah,
used by humans. Third one is again garbage, which I don't have to talk about. So all these things, if you look at it, is it
mhm,
how important is it that we pay attention to individuals? Because now we are looking at elephants. We often talk about elephant numbers. We talk
yeah,
about management plans and various other policies and various other things that come into discussions when we talk about this for long periods. But how important is it that we need to understand these individuals, recognize them as individuals, and not just see them as a elephant in blanket? Because now we are able to see differences in habitats, how they are specializing their activities, how Chinnatambi was able to walk from ATR all the way across banana plantations into sugarcane fields. Thousands of
yes,
people were standing there to watch him. Not a single person was chased. Or if you take Arikumban's example, where after release, during one of those few days where he was in the towns, there was a very clear video where an old woman was standing and he just looked at her and he just chose to, not act upon any triggers that may possibly be there at that point of time. Right?
yes. So just
Yeah.
like you
So
said, it's all, I mean, yeah, sorry.
you go on, you go.
Yeah, I mean, just like we always say, when it comes to tuskers, especially or males, we should always consider the individual characteristics. So,
Mhm.
not every elephant prefer a crop. So they have their preference of crops, and they have preference of fruits also. So, for example, one of the elephants here usually uh, love to feed on the palm tree or the ice apples.
Mhm.
Another elephant was found of jackfruit more, and he uses the areas where you get more mangoes or jackfruit. So they differ, and the preferences definitely differ for most of the tuskers. And
Similarly,
also, I must
sorry.
say, yeah, sorry,
Continue.
yeah, there are some elephants, not some elephant. There are one particular elephant which only comes during the that ice apple season, when the
Mhm.
palmyra fruit falls from the palm tree. Only that season he comes and he spends time with one of the individuals, and he goes back to the forest. And for the rest of the year, maybe for the next 10 months, we are not able to see him. He only comes during that time and spends time close to the human habitations. He feed on that, and he was not an active crop rider. And at that time also his must starts, and maybe that's a
Mhm.
coincidence, and he goes back to the forest without raiding crops or anything. He just goes back. So it's all for what I have seen, it's all individual preferences for most of the elephants.
Okay. So I'm getting a notification saying we have less than a minute right now. So
Okay.
to just continue speaking till it ends, or should we all just log out and log back in really quick?
We could do that, Ganesh. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Or long-term associations or going. So there's so many other things, factors that are playing. But when these elephants get together, there's always a dominance. There's always one or two which is really dominant bulls. And how do they impact the less dominant individuals, you can say, for example. For example, there was one case where some young elephants had been translocated in Kruger, if I'm not wrong, and they started to attack rhinos and other animals as well. And then a dominant bull was introduced in that landscape, and only then these young elephants reduced their attacks on other species. This is something that I read long back ago. So, how important is it when all these young bulls get together? The dominant bull, what is the role that that elephant plays in that?
So, from what I have observed, it was very hard to say which was a dominant bull in the group of 4 or 5, because almost all elephants were of same size, same height, or same age, probably. Say not exact same age, but that maybe a buffer of 8 to 5 years. They were like almost on that age group. So, when it comes to taking decisions, so some of the elephants usually split during the evening times, and one goes to one side and the other three goes to one side, or sometimes two goes to this side. So it was very difficult for me to, even I had the thought, I mean, who was taking decisions, or which is the dominant bull, on who is making others to uh, obey what he was thinking. I couldn't observe anything like that. It was very hard to find something like that from what I have seen. So you have any
Because
similar
here, what I
experiences
notice is,
in Valparai? Yeah, exactly.
that's what I wanted to actually talk to you about. Is on one occasion I was watching about four males, of which one guy was definitely larger, older, and every move of his was being cautiously watched by the other individuals, unless they were playing and when they were doing those attention activities that they were doing. But of course, there was another female also in that group. She was accompanying her young son, who had split from the herd, but she was still with that guy. Now, another much older elephant, female elephant, came in, and each one of these individual bulls took turns one after the other to go greet this individual. So I had not seen this particular individual elephant interact with any of these bulls before, directly when I was on field, but they clearly seem to know each other, and they clearly seem to, though this female is not a part of the herd that these bulls stepped out from, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that kind of interactions is also something that I'm seeing, where adult males are interacting with other herds from time to time. And on some occasions, I've noticed these bulls which have left the herd have gone back and spent some time with the natal herd and again gone back on their own. Right?
Okay.
So these are some of the
Yeah.
things that I've noticed here. But in one particular situation, I think it was around 2015 or 16, we saw a sudden influx. About 10 to 30 new young males appeared on the plateau. And
Okay.
we were really confused what was happening. And I think a few months later, there was also reports of about 20 odd elephants that had been poached in the Varachal sides of Annamalai and Kerala borders. Would
Okay.
could that have caused, that kind of external pressures have caused gang, banding up of these males for security in numbers or anything like that? Have you felt these things also have a role in such activities of male elephants getting together? Because after that, I have not
Not.
seen those
Yeah.
elephants again. They'll come back. I didn't see them again.
Only during that particular time.
Yeah, only during that situation is where I noticed.
Okay. And any idea? I mean, till now you haven't seen that.
Yeah, that was the only time. We just saw about 10 to
Okay.
13 of them, more elephants that year, especially the males. But after that, we
Hmm.
didn't see them. So that
Could
was
that
something
also
that
be a part of an exploratory behavior?
possible, very possible.
Yeah.
So that is where I was coming to, in terms of, if this is going to be the exploratory behavior, is something that we know that elephants are a part of. We don't really have policies that are made specifically towards dealing with elephants. Say, for example, like in your talk, you were saying it's the males that have been coming more to the croplands. So if you
Yes.
look at a policy level at angle, if you look at it, there's really no way you can make a policy for male elephant management also. Because you can take numerous examples, like if you take the case of Bhima and Hassan or many other males which have shown extreme tolerant behavior towards people. They have not charged, they have avoided on many occasions. And those are things that we have seen. So how do we deal with elephants that are very docile and very calm? Like, for example, Chinnathambi also. So the final
Yeah.
place where the elephant landed up was in a camp or like PT7. But what
Yeah.
are the options there? Which again brings it back to the last slide of yours where you spoke about genetics and these what will happen if these bulls are all removed or
Always
released?
around.
What
Yes. Yes.
happens to
Yes.
the gene flow?
Even just like a elephant death, the removing of elephant from the place is also, we are losing that
Yeah,
genes from the
yeah,
forest now.
yeah. So that itself is a serious concern in that sense, if you see, right? So
Yes.
again, again that the video is again playing my mind where that construction site was going on in Palakkad because I know this year
Yeah.
also elephants visited that place again, right?
Close to
Year
that.
after
Yes.
year after year, the elephants have been coming there, but we still
Yeah.
went ahead with the construction.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's the public, we cannot expect much from them because excitement of seeing wildlife in a place, like you said, they were all enjoying the photographs that they were shooting from there. It seemed like a beautiful sight to them, which is
Yes.
fair because they don't get to see them as often as we do or in the context
Yeah.
that
That
we do.
was, they were like in a safe place, and
Yeah.
what
But
can we expect? Yes.
how do we even deal with this in the long term, or how can we think of long-term solutions in terms of because chasing, driving elephants, firecrackers, these are all short-term goals of achieving something that happens at that point of time. But in the long run, how do we
Yeah.
even get to this situation of even addressing this issue? Because we
But
have a loss of human lives, retaliatory killings, farmers' issues have to be seen, rates of interest that they're borrowing money from, and in a single night, if an elephant group of elephants just go through the crops, their entire livelihood is gone. It's an extremely what do you say, pressing situation in that case. So where do you think
it's
we should begin in this sense?
it's very hard for me to tell what to do maybe in the long run. But as a beginning, just looking at their movement patterns and monitoring them closely for throughout the year, maybe for long years or long-term monitoring is definitely a solution, which what I believe. Because the more we understand about them, their movement patterns, their must season, or their crop preferences or their grouping preferences, it's actually an advantage for even the policymakers. I mean, at least we know something about the elephant rather than just one elephant just coming suddenly into a place and just habituating and starting to raid crops. And I think it's always better to have a proper database or just monitor them for a long term. Uh,
Yeah,
that's probably the beginning. It's only the
yeah, even I
beginning. It's yeah.
it's only the start. And there should be a lot of
Yes.
transparency in terms of deaths also. I think it's high time
Yes.
public has clear access to which are the areas, why have elephants died, and collated to see what is the major reasons for why reasons elephants are dying. Because
Yes.
like you said, long-term understanding of any information in that sense itself is a great information to make managerial management plans itself. But being transparent about it, because there's another situation that I've been reading recently about literally when elephants are killed for tusks or poached and meat and skin and everything else that is going on. And now I've been reading reports of elephants literally being smuggled as well across states. So if
Yeah.
these things continue, then it's going to be really, really difficult. We're not going to have much to even, begin
Yeah.
unless we start
And
now.
I think when we do the long term monitoring, the behavior that we see in a place like Valparai or Nelliampati will be totally different from what we see in a Palakkad, Coimbatore landscape. So the
Exactly.
crops and the weather and the water availability, everything is different.
Well, you can take this
Even
example.
I should say that the tolerance of people also matters a
Exactly.
lot.
That is what I was coming to say next because the
Yeah.
elephant from Nellyampati, when he comes to Alia, this
Yeah.
elephant is so calm and very beautifully. He's able to have a relaxed situation in Nellyampati, but like the image that you showed of him running on the main road with public gathered around him is quite a thing
Yeah.
because it's the same elephant just reacting to people on how they behave with it, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways,
So I
this
don't
is what I
know
want.
how much awareness can help in this, because the tolerance of people is also a great will be a great input for conserving the elephants for a longer time, because everything depends on people. From what I have seen, even the capture is for the people, for the local people. So definitely that tolerance, we have to somehow create that tolerance in some of the places, and I feel that that will really help.
Yeah, unless we address people's needs,
Yes,
tolerance is
yes,
very hard
yes,
to build. And when I say
yes, I
people,
know.
it's not the people living in cities, it's the people
Yes, yes.
sharing with the forest and facing the
Space
elephants.
with the elephants. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Great. Thanks so much, Anish.
Thank you,
Sanjay,
Ganesh.
over to you.
Thank you, Ganesh and Anish. I think this discussion helped clarify a lot of questions that people had, that I had also. We'll now move on to the Q&A session. This is moderated by Sanjay Ajanikar. Sanjay has graduated with a BTech in chemical engineering, and he has also done a postgraduate in management studies with a specialization in marketing. Previously, he has worked as a market researcher and loyalty program professional, but right now he is using his expertise and skill sets to manage wildlife conservation programs. Currently, he is associated with Asian Nature Conservation Foundation and the Dakshin Foundation for managing research and wildlife conservation programs. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you so much, Anvitha, and thank you for such a lovely talk, Mr. Anish, and lovely discussion between Ganesh and Anish. And there are a lot of questions I could see, and let me directly jump into those questions. So my audibility is good enough, right, Anvitha?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yeah,
Okay,
Sanjay,
wonderful.
yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right, lovely. So there's a question, there are a couple of questions which overlap, so I'm trying to manage as better as I can. So let me start with the question from Rajiv Verma, uh, where he asked a very specific questions about the Palakkad gap that Anish has pointed out. And he is asking, did elephants ever used to? So in historical reference, although you said that, elephants hardly use the Palakkad gap, and these guys have started using. So, but still, even I would like to be, underline it that historically, where they used to use Palakkad gap.
Uh, from what I heard, I have never heard of elephants. I mean, not after. I mean, from my grandmother's era, I have not heard probably elephants crossing the
Right,
Palghat
right.
Gap, because
Okay.
my family is also from Palakkad. So, I mean, I've never heard. So maybe
Right,
before that, maybe 100 years before that, I'm not sure, and I
right,
have not read anywhere
right, right,
of
right,
elephants crossing that Palghat Gap, and the forest connectivity is also not there.
right,
It's
right.
actually fragmented. There is actually, if you can see in the map, there is a small. It's not connected, but there are huge gaps between the forests,
Right,
and
right,
it's all developed towns and highways and railway lines. So
right,
I don't
right,
think
right.
whether it's possible now.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So then there's a question from Anupama, where she's asking, in case of bulls in group, do they collectively start being in must? If so, do they compete of the same female of group, or do the older and stronger bulls take the lead and other look for groups of females?
From from what I have observed over the past few years, so
Hmm,
usually the bulls in must retract or go inside somewhere for, and they'll disappear
right,
for
right,
maybe a few months from the
right,
landscape, and while the rest of the bachelor bulls, which are not in must, usually stays
right,
in the human habitation.
right,
So this is what I have observed with almost all the bulls.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
So similar, yeah.
And in one instance, one must bull was associated with a non-must bull, but I have seen them for 5 years, and I have never seen them fighting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. So, are you saying that you have seen two bulls who are in must and you have seen them together?
Not two bulls. One was in
No.
must and one was in not non-must.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I've been seeing them for a long time now, and I've never seen them fighting or even nobody has seen them fighting. They spend considerable amount of time close to the human habitation, but no.
Right. Interesting. There's one more
And the
question.
same bull, actually, sorry to interrupt. The same bull, after spending maybe 1 month along in must, spends about 1.5 months along with a non-must bull, and he also retracts to the interior forest after that. So this is what I've mostly seen.
Okay. So would Ganesh like to add something around this?
Not much. I think Anish has pretty much summarized it. But with bulls, similarly here again, we have it's a very interesting journey of these young males. It's they're timid, they're intimidated by the larger bulls. They're literally following them like fans, I can say at some point of time. And like Anvitha has mentioned in the comments also, they also have preferences with who they'd like to spend more time with, though they may all be in a single unit. There may be these one or two individuals who are much more comfortable, and that is something that you can see in herds as well among the female elephants.
Right.
So in that case, the process of learning how to fight, the technique of maneuver, how to put your tusks where, how to put another elephant off balance, and various other things are all things that these elephants learn with time over 8-10 years of pushing and pulling each other, muscle physiological development that happens. All these things are part of the development of a male. So by the time the elephant has come to a stage where he's in full must and he's able to, sense a female over there, by then the elephant also will have some survival skills on how to deal with other elephants who are challenging in that landscape.
Interesting. So yeah, Anvitha also asked similar on the similar line question where she talked about the dynamics. Does it change when the bachelor group either of them in must, and Anish has already replied to it, but again I just would like to underline, have either of you observed whenever there is a bachelor group or there are duos where both of them are in must and they are found together?
Not here. I have not seen, but I have seen, like how Anish said, certain large, dominant bulls in the past. Seen many of the younger elephants, I mean, who can also on a normal day have a play fight, but not have a serious must duel that may get into. We've seen them be wary of them and but we have seen them spending time with herds, with calves, with other individuals while the bull is in must, full-blown must.
Right. All right. So Mr. Sayub has asked this question about, again, this is not so relevant to the topic that we are talking today about the bachelor elephants, but again, just to have your, inputs. So he's talking about, since you have been observing the bulls and bachelors for quite a long time, so what kind of, mitigation strategies has been put in place other than capture that you mentioned a couple of times?
I think the capture is the last option usually anyone will take, especially the forest department. I mean, when it's the people's pleasure, I mean, the pressure is so hard, then they have no option but to capture the elephant. So the common thing that even the forest department or the locals will do is to just drive away, and they have the solar fencing, which definitely the elephants will. They have different methods to break the fences. So whatever the hanging fence or the normal fence, they are capable of breaking that. So safeguarding and driving them from the croplands is probably the most used mitigation measure in these parts probably.
If we can add to that, if we take a list of all the mitigation measures that we're using right now in the world, you can list it out in the fingertips. You can say solar fencing, hanging fences, trenches, beehives, chili ropes,
rail fence,
capture, translocation. Okay, these are pretty much what has been going on since we have began trying to address these issues. But these interactions with people and elephants is something that has been happening for centuries. It's not something. But elephants are also a species which is severely, very, very smart. They are adapting. They are figuring out new ways. For an elephant to be able to figure out that its tusks do not conduct electricity and it's able to break a solar fence is very, very interesting in my opinion, that way if you see. But this is something that since solar fences came in since the 80s, we've been proposing this and we've been continuing to, make it more robust. That's pretty much what we can do. We had the horizontal ones, now the vertical hanging ones are coming. There are immediate reactions that elephants or other animals will show towards something new. They do get used to it. They will try and figure their way out or around the whole situation. So this is what we're looking at. But in the long term, if you have to look at long-term goals, I think it's very, very important that we start looking at insurance in one side for all the people who are losing their lives and crops to elephants. This is because, see, if you look at a crop field that is damaged by a herd of elephants, the amount of
Right.
that the farmer goes through is something we cannot even say with words. Right? If you've taken high rates of grief, just imagine. And that's one of the major reasons why people are also committing suicides and things like that. But
Right.
the other issue is, like, for example, if you take the rates set by a coffee board, that'll be something for a coffee bush. The amount that is being given by the forest department would be something else if the property is damaged or something. But if we can get proactive in the local spaces, we need to work in the local spaces with the farmers there. Either we have to look at alternate cropping patterns, or we'll have to look into some insurance program that where people are already realizing that this is a possibility, that we have to share the space and resources with wildlife as well, because we're close to the forest. At the same time,
Right.
minimize the beating that the forester has to suffer every single time this happens. Lack of sleep, 4 5 days, every single day they're out protecting their fields. During the day they have to work, they're borrowing money at high rates. And all these things, overall, if you look at it, it's not just the physical health, it's the mental health of the person also that deteriorates severely. So
Right.
this is something that we need to really look at if we really want to address or make a progress towards something that is viable for both people and elephants in the long run. We really need to start looking at other options as well and not stick to traditional methods alone.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Ganesh, I just want to add one thing. So, as you have just mentioned, alternate cropping. So, I have I have observed a very interesting thing here. So, close to the forest boundary, there was a few paddy fields which was taken over, and now it's not anything is being cultivated there. It's abandoned. So, it's like a forested area, and there are paddy fields half a kilometer away from that place, and now elephants are raiding crops in that place, which is quite far from the forest. So this might probably happen when we do alternating croppings also, because they tend to come out of the forest more, probably. I mean, some instance I have seen. I'm not sure that whether this will happen at every
There's a
place where we are.
possibility.
Yeah.
There's a possibility for this to happen, but these are things that need to be explored more. We're not putting that kind of
Yes.
effort,
Yes. Yes.
and we're not really
Exactly.
exploring these options. We're only reacting when something goes wrong, be it an elephant getting killed or a person losing his or her life. That's when
Yeah.
India gets the frenzy of it, and by the time the person who's consuming this information through news, the story can be distorted. You know how many things can actually happen in between the finer details, which is often missed in being
Yeah. Yeah.
communicated to the rest of the crowd. So yeah, we have to start thinking in that direction. Is all I want to say.
Yes. Sure.
Sure. So, although this has been also covered already, what Avijan is asking a question, but I would still like to ask if you have to add anything more. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question, where he's asking what behavioral activities you notice after capture and relocate. Although you covered about Chinnakambi, but if anything that you would like to specifically add, very specific to the behavioral changes. Also, what happens, we are tend to think in a very human way. We tend to see some kind of result, or we want some kind of action. So from that point of view also, have you noticed any kind of changes, or it was you know business as usual?
So sorry. I mean, you're talking
Uh,
about
I'm
after
talking
the
about after
Behavioral
the
changes in
capture.
captured individuals
Yeah, after, yeah,
or
after the
translocated individuals.
relocation.
I was not able to observe the elephant after capture for a
All right.
long time. So, but
Um,
I at a particular instance, 10 years back, I was able to observe a translocated individual which was transferred from Wayanad to Shirwani. So he was having a tumor in his stomach. So that individual was mentioned, I mean, picturized as a problem creator there. And when translocated also he was like charging on vehicles, and maybe because of the pain that he had, I'm not sure, but even the people around Shirvani also faced the same problem there. He was at he charged at multiple vehicles, and I was there in one vehicle which he charged. So that was the only instance in which I could see a translocated individual. So that is the only experience that I have.
I have two things to share on this.
Mm-hmm.
First one is Madhukarai elephant, which you mentioned, Anish, in the photograph also.
Madhukarai Maharaj.
Yeah. So that elephant was darted, moved into the kraal, but the elephant tried to break out of the kraal the same night, ended up hitting its head to the post, suffered a skull fracture and died. It died in the kraal.
Yes.
Okay. So on another occasion, over the past 4 months, actually, I've been following this translocated elephant. So this elephant was captured in a dry habitat area, released in the wetter parts of Annamalai Tiger Reserve. It walked through villages and towns, and it almost went to Perur, where it was again captured and released back in ATR, because many other tiger reserves were not very favorable of having this elephant there, again because of the issue that this elephant seeks out crops, be it coconut, sugarcane, or banana, and then it is finally. Sorry. So this elephant, basically, what I was going to say is, again, for the second time, it is captured after causing a lot of damage to coconut fields and such, like damages to that. It was released here. So the whole time I was really concerned about this elephant was, what kind of exposure are we going to give this elephant? The conditioning that we are going to give. Are we going to chase it every single time it sees us? Because in that case, that is the long-term conditioning that is going to happen. That is going to really affect how the elephant is going to perceive people or how it's going to react to people. We shouldn't be really always chasing this elephant at every site of it. So that was one of my major concerns. And thankfully, this elephant had the habit of moving only after 10 in the night. And after 4:35 a.m., it does not step out. So whatever activity this elephant had to do, it was forced to do it only during the night hours. And by choice, literally, it looked like, because this elephant was exploring, coming back and staying there the whole day in a little habitat of eucalyptus or whatever secondary vegetation cover that was available in that space. And then it would move. But what was amazing to me is, this elephant had never been to this place ever before. And like I was saying, it's from a dry habitat area. But to be released in a rainforest area, and this elephant followed the exact same tracks laid by the numerous herds that keep walking these trails year after year after. So it was not something that, for us, it may have looked like, okay, this elephant is going from this forest to the other. But if you look at the GPS and the way it has moved, it has shown such a beautiful way that it has shown that, elephants have seemed to have created this network of paths and tracks that even if the elephant is new to the landscape, it is still figuring it out and heading back to the direction that it wants to.
Right. That's very interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
So I'll move on to the next question by Julie and Kishore. Okay. And although these questions are partly, addressed during the conversation, but I would like to just modify a bit and ask about it. So they're talking about, we establish a fact that solitary male vis-a-vis a duo or a bachelor group, they would have an advantage when it comes to procreating in terms of defense mechanism. But having said that, have you observed, the similar behavior when they are in forest?
For me, I have not seen big adult bull groups inside the forest. I have seen some of the photographs from Parambikulam in which 2 or 3 male elephants have spent time together during the, I think it was during the summer, probably. That's maybe on the reservoir, so where all the elephants and herds and everything gather when the water is less at that time. So other than that, I personally haven't seen a bachelor group inside the forest. Small, I mean, sub-adult individuals, 2 or 3 I have seen in some places, but large, long associations I have never seen.
Yeah,
It
me
was
neither.
mostly close to the human habitations.
All right. Yeah, and also you mentioned, a couple of times that once they are inside, it's very difficult to track and observe.
Yes.
Unless both of them are, a geotagged or something, which again could be another situation which could aid into observations.
Yes.
All right. So there are a couple of questions which are similar. So I'm just skipping them. So I will get to. Yeah. So this is a question I would like to, either of you can take up. So Dr. Mahesh would like to ask when they are on, raiding on all these crops, which is outside forest, that you mentioned. So what happens to these elephant in terms of their body condition and otherwise if they are continuously on the crop breeding phenomenon, be it paddy or banana or sugarcane and so on?
Yes, the body condition is totally different from a tusker that you see inside the forest, or which is not a habitual crop rider. So in that duo itself, you can see that the elephants are really huge, and you cannot literally see the spine. It's like,
Right.
and that image also. I mean, a normal elephant which is living in the forest might look something similar to the post-musk stage, or little more of that. So, but this crop riding bulls, the body condition is totally different. Especially just before must, we can literally see that.
Yeah. All right. So there is one interesting question by Mr. Chetan CM, and I would like to, ask in a better way, where he's saying that these are such a brilliant observations over the years, and specifically about the Bachelor group. So have these been shared with the Forest Department, and if yes, how they would have helped them to deal with the mitigation?
Yes, yes. All the data has been shared with the forest department, and the long-term monitoring is actually happening here. So that's why we are able to track the elephants and individually identify them and their movement. Everything is tracked. So that long-term monitoring actually it started a few years back, and it's still going on.
Interesting. Okay, so this is another interesting question. So again, you have to verify between Ganesh and Aneesh if this is a fact or not. So what Mr. Ashwin is saying that in Karnataka there are less captures compared to Tamil Nadu and Kerala nowadays. Whether there are less pressure from people or Forest Department Karnataka is more against such captures.
I think captures are still going
No,
on.
sir.
In Tamil Nadu,
Karnataka
there's
more
a high
captures.
court. Yeah, in
Karnataka
Karnataka,
has more captures, right?
Tamil Nadu
Yeah.
High Court has issued the statement, has issued an order saying you cannot capture elephants unless it's absolutely necessary. Karnataka is still one of the largest states that is capturing most number of elephants, and I've heard many of them are going to other states as well.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So I think this meeting is also about to end. So there are a couple of questions that Anvitha has put it together. So I would like Anvitha only take up those which are not yet asked. Anvitha?
Yeah. No, actually, what I wanted to add was these findings are quite different from what we see in Kabini. So the elephants that we have been monitoring there, they do not go crop raiding, and their body condition is much worse than what the photos you have shown. And what we have found out is that they are mostly solitary, and if they are in all male groups, the group sizes are quite small. I mean, you hardly see group sizes more than 4 or 5. And often we see older males with other older males and younger males with other younger males. And we have recently also found that these associations are not actually based on relatedness. So these males are not related to each other, but still they do associate with each other. So I think, yeah, what landscape they are in matters a lot in terms of what kind of social structure you see in
But
those
what about
elephants.
the places close to the human habitation? I mean, are there Bachelor Bulls grouping happens?
So we don't study any region closer to the human
Okay.
habitation. So this is restricted to
Yeah.
the national parks. But what we do
Okay.
here from forest department is that when they do go crop raiding, they see multiple males going together. So
Yeah.
I think it's something to do with the fact that they're going crop raiding and there's threat there. And
Okay.
probably there's safety in numbers. Yeah. I think the other questions I will ask Aneesh some other time. So maybe we can
Sure, definitely.
the
And
meeting here.
also the meeting is about to be, getting over. So it's not because the meeting is getting over, the questions are getting over. And this is really interesting. I think what is one thing that I would like to underline from what Ganesh has quoted, about, and even Anish has responded about the policy level, it's a more challenging, but I think what is interesting is to continue observing them on a long term, and that could be passed on to forest department along with, insights so that it becomes more rigorous monitoring and could be used in the mitigation. Thank you so much, Ganesh and Anish. I would hand over to Anvitha to close the event.
Thank you, Anish, Ganesh, and Sanjay. I think all of us gained a lot of insights, new insights on Bachelor Elephants. I thank everyone for joining the event today, and I hope to see you all next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ganesh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anvitha.
It was really nice
Thank you,
talking to
Sanjay.
you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Well, thank you so much.